2002 VW Cabrio. I need to replace the bump stops on the struts, and I need to replace the steering rack. So obviously set the brake, jack it up, yada yada. These axle nuts are 30mm. Okay, top nut on the strut, either 22 or 21. Undo the fastener holding the line to the strut, 10mm. Take your screwdriver, or however you want to do it, and prise the brake shoes away from the drum or the disc so you can slide this off. You don't need to take these out, just take the main mounts off. I believe those are 17. Once you get the brake bracket loose, hang it. About the only thing left to hang it from, since I got to take the whole suspension out, is the fan belt here. So that's what I did, but don't let it hang by this. Don't put tension on this or you may ruin it. Okay, you're gonna have to take out your control arm because it's holding the subframe in. That bolt, this one's an 18. I'm not sure what the back one is, probably 17, but do it however you choose to do it. Also, I'm gonna say this right now. I may not say it toward the end of the video, but when you put the car back together, don't torque this bolt until you have the car sitting on its weight so that this bushing can settle at the proper height. If you torque it while it's off the ground, you will destroy this bushing in short order because it's in the wrong position. It'll be down instead of where it's at rest because it doesn't pivot. Undo your anti-roll bar link so you can pull the control arm out. It's a 13 nut. Don't lose any of the bushings. Remember how they go back. Then after that, undo this pinch bolt. This side's a 17. I think the other side is a 16. So then you'll be able to get the control arm out. Okay, undo your ABS wiring. Okay. Tech tip, if you undo both sides, driver and passenger, of the anti-roll bar, you get a lot more swing and you don't have to fight the damn thing. All right, you need to undo the tie rod, and on mine it's 19. You need to knock this out. I have new tie rod ends, so I'm not going to worry about destroying the boot, but if you're reusing yours, be careful. I didn't know this beforehand, but the boot is obviously gone. So take your strut out, and I'm gonna order a new axle. Okay, I'd like to correct something I said before. You might not even need to unbolt the front here. You definitely need to unbolt the rear right there of the control arm, but you don't have to pull the control arm out. You just have to get everything out of the way. All right, so you're gonna have to undo this engine mount on the back of the engine. There's a 13 here and a 13 where I can't really get the phone. Yep. Well, I had to go get a 4x4 and some all thread and bend it because I got to support the engine because I have to undo both rear engine mounts. This is one of the jobs I fear the most. Compressing springs using these old school spring compressors. You need to be very careful. Position them 120 degrees apart. Make sure they kind of stay in line. Run them down evenly. I forgot to put this bump stop on when I changed the strut, so now I have to do it again. Now I have to undo this cover here. There's a little plastic flathead there and one there. and then I'll be able to get to the nut that holds the steering column to the steering rack. Hopefully it won't be too bad. There's a flat on the rack, so I can't get it in the wrong position, which is nice. Okay, now I'm gonna turn the wheel back to where it was. Wait a minute. Oops. Okay, that's all the way. 1, 2, 3. So I'll turn it 1.5 back. 1/2, 1, 1.5. All right, that should be in the middle. The steering wheel's relatively straight. So now I'll take that off and put it back on in the straight position. I took all the bolts out of the subframe. There were 6 major bolts holding it in, and the engine mounts are unbolted, and the engine is supported. So let's see how easily this thing will come down. Oh, I also took the nuts off the steering shaft, so. All right, now I gotta undo the steering lines. I don't know if I gained myself any room or not. On the driver's side, I just took the bolt out of the middle here instead of these ones on the side. The other side, I could get to them both easily, so I took those out instead of the center because the center was not easy to get to. Now, this, you can see how much the subframe has dropped on this side, but the lines are holding it right there and there. I do have more room to get to them now, but they're still not going to be easy. I undid the steering shaft in here because there's a boot that you'll never get off from the bottom side. It's a grommet with a lip on it. Just push it out. It's probably going to be a real pain to get back in, but you know, I'll deal with that when I get to it. I'm planning on selling this car as soon as possible, but I noticed that these bushings are slightly torn. They were 16 bucks a piece from O'Reilly. Gotta wait till tomorrow to get them. But when this subframe is in place, because it has an automatic, you can't get this bolt out of the front. It comes out maybe about that much, but the bolt is that long. So you got to drop the subframe anyway. And my luck, if I don't replace those now, I'll have to drop the subframe again before I sell it. Well, I figured I'd never get to those fittings with the rack up. Obviously the rack is lowered a bit. It's off the engine mounts. So I put a 18mm crow's foot on it, and I've got every extension in the kit on there. And now I'm gonna undo this one first and then the back one. They're both 18. I got these fittings loose, but the lines won't pull out now because of this clip, which is attached to this bracket that's riveted in. So now I'm gonna try and get in here. There we go. So you got to take that bracket open, use a little hook. It's really not that hard. So now I can pull the lines out. The lines are out now. Steering shaft is loose. Everything should be loose. Engine mounts are undone. You know, this bolt, the one back there, and the one here on both sides, they're all out. Subframe is pretty much free, as you can see. So now I'll try and lower it. Although I may let this drain a little bit more before I move anything. Well, here's the steering shaft, and here's this boot that zip ties onto the rack. You're never gonna get this up enough with it in the car. Look at that. Never gonna get it up high enough to get the one bolt that holds this shaft on, and this pulls out pretty easily. So just do it this way and push the boot out. But here's the subframe. The boot is broken. Boot is broken. This one just recently broke, but they broke because the seals went bad and they filled with fluid and it just started peeing all over the ground. As you can see, the car normally parks forward, and it's been peeing quite a while. I've been avoiding this job because it's pretty involved, especially without a lift. This is the Reman steering rack. Came from Napa, cost quite a bit, and there's a hefty core on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this one off since I'm waiting for parts, and I'm gonna go ahead and take it back to Napa and get my core back. Now you can see, hopefully, well, maybe kind of hard, but there's a tear about a quarter of the way on each side, so that the mount is halfway torn. And these mounts are 16 bucks a piece. They used to be $8 4 years ago. Never mind. But I'm gonna go ahead and replace these. These are simple press in, press out. These ones on the front, I'm gonna leave alone. They look okay. Hopefully I don't discover that they're bad tomorrow. But be that as it may. Once you take the boot off here, you need to undo the screw that goes through there, and then use a screwdriver and pry the thing off. Should be pretty easy, hopefully, because it's all self-contained unless the boot has been compromised, but yeah, it should be easy. Don't forget to lube your shaft and the opening before you stick this back on. It'll make it a lot easier. And there's the flat on one side and the divot on the other side for the bolt, so it should go right back in the same place. This is some real shade tree stuff here, but in order to get it to the alignment shop, I need it somewhat close so I don't ruin any parts or scrub the hell out of the tires. So I took these two boards, marked them, got them parallel, measured from, a mark there, that end. It's 64 1/8 inch. So I'm going to set up the other rack exactly the same way. After I dismounted the steering rack, I took this to the car wash, and it's still a little bit greasy, but that'll help it. And yeah, I won't get my hands completely filthy every time I stick my hands in there, so yay. Since you can't replace these while the driver's side, while the automatic transmission is in the way of this front bolt, I decided I was going to go ahead and change these bushings since the other ones were a little bit torn, like here and here. But I looked in the Bentley manual, and this quote kidney shaped opening, they kind of both look that way, but this one goes toward the center of the car, which would be that direction. Do your best to get it lined up, but it's not the end of the world if you get it a few degrees off. socket worked on the way out, but it ain't gonna work on the way back in. It's not perfect, and I bent it a little bit because of this, but it'll work. I recommend getting new control arms because they come with ball joints, and this is a real pain to install. Fortunately, this one's good, so I only replaced this, and the ball joint's okay. But for this car, these are $56 a piece, fully loaded. All right, the replacement rack is bolted in. I replaced this bushing here. This one just sits flat on there, it's metal. So, and make sure the sway bar or the anti-roll bar is below these, because you're not gonna get it without removing that or the rack if you made the mistake of putting the tie rods underneath. The axle was bad. Well, the boot was bad on this side. It'd been slinging grease for a long time. This is the time to replace the axle. So I went and bought all new fasteners, because no telling how long these have been in there. And this is the time to do it. So it's done. I've skipped most of the drama. It's not easy. I mean, I guess it might be. It's not too bad to get this subframe back in, but you definitely have to be careful and, you know, whatevs. The struts back in on the passenger side, and about to put the driver's side back in and hopefully take it to get aligned. Here is an important point. Okay. Well, you may not be able to see the movement of the control arm. However, this bolt is loose because when I set down the car, I want it to rest. It's gonna rest here, not here. And these bushings do not pivot. So if you tighten it up, torque it up right now, when it's off the ground, you're gonna destroy these bushings. Don't ask me how I know. I've destroyed 2 sets of them because I didn't follow that rule. So tighten it, you know, about finger tight, set it down, and then torque it once it's on the ground. It's gonna be a pain in the butt, but you will save yourself a lot of extra work.